Hello and welcome again to the Bottom Line Me podcast. I'm Ann Allard, your host, and today joining me for the final episode of our discussion on business planning is Bill Svoboda. Today we're going to talk about the growth engine. So Bill, let's dive right into that.
Well, yeah, we've covered a lot over the last few podcasts. We talked about customers, we've talked about value proposition, we've talked about the vision for the business. We laid out foundations for scaling. If we don't have the right systems, if we don't have the right things that make us unique, it's very hard to go, hey, world, look at me, give me a file. So now if we've done all these things, it's easy to start talking about growing our companies. Again, this is the one-page business growth and scale plan. So let's talk about growth. We've done those things. Let's talk about three areas that are going to help our company grow in terms of sales. Okay, how are we going to grow the number of orders, the number of how big we're going to be really? Three areas here: marketing, sales, and retention. Okay, marketing, sales, retention. And I want to just draw a clear line between those three things, okay? And just go, let's give a few definitions here. Marketing. How do I want to define marketing? Marketing is creating conversations that make the customer feel understood. Okay, marketing is making conversations that make the customer feel understood to where they raise their hand and go, that's me. I need that. That's my pain. I want that. Finally, somebody is saying what I've been thinking. Okay, so if we started at the customer segment and we started thinking, who do we want to work with? And you started backlogging it to how do we now have the right value proposition? What type of business would they want to work with and what systems? All of a sudden now, what we're trying to go is, hey, this is who we are. We love working with people like this. And you want them to start opting in. Okay, so you want them to feel understood. Finally, somebody is saying what I've been thinking. Finally, somebody is saying that the closing day should be a celebration. I've been thinking that, so I want to go with that title company that says that. Or finally, somebody's saying that they'll text me back during the closing.
Right.
What is it that makes your audience go, finally, somebody understands me? Finally, somebody is speaking my language. So that's general marketing. It's putting those conversations out. Sales, though, is engaging to solve the customer need. It's kind of rolling the sleeves up and going, let's talk about how we're actually going to do that for you. Let's talk about your first order. Let's talk about what it's like to work with us. Okay, we're going a little deeper. Retention then is nurturing the relationships to keep the customers coming back. We don't want to talk about just getting the first sale. We want to talk about keeping that customer. I always like to say, I have a talk that I give called Attentionomics, and it's about the science of attention. Okay, so Attentionomics, just like economics, attention has a science to it. We give attention to things, then we get attention, but we got to keep attention. You can give attention to your customers. They give you attention then when they give you the order, but you're only as good as can you keep the attention past that first order. And unfortunately, in our industry, after that first order, it's easy to lose the attention. But that's what we want to dig into today.
And that I think can happen in all three of those areas. You can lose their attention in the marketing process, the sales process, and the retention process. So if your message isn't crafted and received the way you want it to be received, if for whatever reason your sales process doesn't land, the retention is not likely, I guess. But anyway, tell me more.
Let's start here, Ann. So what makes a good marketing message? It's the customer feels understood. Okay, so what do they feel understood about? It's something that's unique to your business that another business doesn't have. Okay, so if you've done the job, if you've done the work of trying to figure out what makes us us, we've done the Michael Jordan principle, and we're not going to play the same game against somebody who's going to win. We're going to change the game and we're going to start talking about something new. Marketing is simply talking about that. It's simply putting it out into the world that, hey, we're the title company that actually cares about the closing day. about making it the biggest celebration, or we're the title company that actually promises that we're going to get back to every voicemail same day. We're the title company that's going to promise that we get back to text messages. We're the title company that promises fill in the blank. What are your promises? That's what marketing is in a nutshell. We always talk about marketing in terms of like social media, this and that, like the tactics of it. But I want to talk about what are we doing with marketing? It's creating conversations around things that people care about. That's what it boils down to.
It's beyond curiosity is what I'm hearing from you, because I think in my years of dabbling in some of those things, it's marketing in my mind was always about let's create some interest, some curiosity. But you're talking about something that goes to a much deeper level. That if I read an advertisement or pick up a flyer, I walk away saying that person's talking to me.
Yeah.
They
That's
wrote
what we
this just
want.
for me. Yeah. Yeah.
That's one of my favorite marketing campaigns ever. And I wish, so this was years ago, and I found the clipping, like I found the internet thing, but I should have printed it out. I got to find it. But it was this financial management firm. And out of New York City, this is in the 1990s. And what they did was they had a whole campaign around realizing that there were a lot of women who maybe were divorced or widowed, and they had a lot of money. And a lot of those women just didn't feel empowered enough to have a good conversation with their financial advisors. They just didn't feel like they could. That was kind of the market insight.
Yeah.
So what this company did was they specifically made advertisements to speak to the women on their thing about how they want to speak to the women, not the husband. How they're going to talk not to the husband, but to the wife. How they want to have the wife's input. And all of a sudden that financial firm, this is not in New York City. I wish I could, I kind of want to Google it right now to find this. But what was fascinating about it was everybody else was talking to the male. And this one financial firm goes, no, we're just going to talk to women about how do we empower them for their financial futures. And lo and behold, which company was growing in the segment, the demographic of women?
Customer
That one
segments.
financial firm. Yeah.
Wow.
Again, it's raising a conversation.
Great
going,
example.
you deserve a seat at the table, not just your husband. And that was enough to change the conversation, and that company just blew up. I'll have to Google it after this and find out. But
Absolutely.
there are all these examples of how are you talking to your segment that's different than the competition is. That's what marketing is. Yeah. And how we do it, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, it's all different.
Right.
For those women who chose that financial company, it was because they wanted a seat at the table. And finally, a financial manager said, you deserve a seat at the table. No choice. We're going with that one.
Without a doubt. Okay, so what's the next part of this the sales process? Is that where you're going next?
Sales process. Yeah. And the sales process, I think there's a difference between marketing, making the customer aware, and the sales process, which is engaging them in actually that transaction. How do we get them down that funnel? And what I like to think about is this. What is your clear process to where from the second somebody hears about your brand to them doing their first order, we're going to break this down in the title and escrow world here and go, when that real estate agent trusts you on that first file, what is your game plan to make sure they feel like every step of the process, you're hand-holding them, you're hand-holding your buyer seller, you're hand-holding the mortgage, you're doing everything to make that realtor go, there's no other choice but this title company. From the first file on, what is your sales process to them going, just trust me, to here it is, and what are we going to be doing? Now, I kind of like to geek out on the sales process because, there's so many different tools that we could be using. There's BombBomb. We could be thinking about hitting up realtors on LinkedIn, all these things. But I want to go back to the basic of marketing yields sales conversations. And if we're not having the right conversation at the marketing level, go back to that financial advisor, women deserve a seat at the table. It doesn't matter how much sales we try to push. If we're not saying the right thing and speaking in terms of what they're looking for, it doesn't matter. So sales is literally making the promise then, going, trust me on this. Trust me on this. How am I going to get 50 realtors into a room to trust me for a half-hour segment on geo-farming or fill in the blank, whatever I want to teach them? But then how am I going to get them to actually trust me with their first file? For that, I think it goes right back to we got to show them the customer experience process.
Yeah.
That's what people buy into. They buy into the process.
Yeah. And, you're talking about sales process from an entirely different vantage point as opposed to, what traditional salespeople do. But having that process in place, I think you're absolutely correct. If that marketing message or that whatever it is that you're trying to convey to your customer segment, it almost seems like the logical next step. It'll just automatically you sort of move right into it. It's sort of like
Here's a classic example. So when Domino's came out with their pizza tracker, their marketing process was it should be easy. Like you should be able to order whenever you want, whenever you want, and you should be able to watch it being made. You should be able to track it.
Amazing.
But it was crazy.
It's amazing.
The sales process then became what was Domino's really selling? They weren't selling pizza anymore. They were selling a process. They were going, if you put your info right here, this is going to happen next. This. Mm-hmm. You select the toppings, click submit. This is going to happen next. Trust us. Sales is trust. Sales is extending that arm going, if you just trust me on this one, look. And I guarantee you, if you have your process outlined, if you have your partners in place, if you have all these things that we've already talked about and know what your value proposition is different than the next, it's a lot easier for your salespeople to go, trust me on this. This is what it looks like every time you close with us.
Right.
I like to say it with Close Simple. We've actually, sales reps at title companies will literally go into a realtor's office and they go, look, when you close with my title company, we use this software and you're going to get a text message and an email update at every step of the process. We've literally had realtors switch title companies because they just want to know what's happening. They go, I want those text messages. So sales is making the promise. Then we have to fulfill it. And that's really where retention comes in. How are we making good on it?
All right. Let's talk retention now.
So
you gotta have it.
Yeah. So I have an iPhone. Half the world has iPhones.
I know. You told me that a couple of episodes ago.
I told you that.
I don't.
Let's talk about the brand promise that Apple makes to me. They say that if you have this iPhone, it's going to sync with your computer, with your iPad, maybe with your car. If we talk about retention, what we're really talking about is how are we making it such a sticky process that I would never dream of leaving this relationship? How does Apple know me so well that, you know what, you could have the greatest Android phone in the world, the greatest computer could come out, but it doesn't play well with me. So when I think about actually the retention process, it's not about the first sale. What it is about delivering on that first sale and then going, I understand you, Mr. or Mrs. Real Estate Agent, Mr. or Mrs. Consumer, Mr. or Mrs. Lender, better than anybody. And my whole life is going to be spent getting to know you better and making your life better. That's all it is. That's all it is. My goal is to make your life better.
Well, and what you just said, it's not about the first sale. Again, you make me sit up and take notice because that is it. That is so true. Based on your examples there, It's not about the fact that you went out and bought the phone. It's what happened after and how it's continued to happen. And I think that is applicable in any one of in any business. It's what happens next.
I know one title company, the owner literally grew the title business because what he did was he was the king of networking, and he knew this realtor, this builder, this loan officer, this dentist. And he became the connection point between all these things to where they're like,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm buying a $5 million home. Why wouldn't I choose you? Like, you've added so much value in my life and the relationships. You don't have to sell
Right.
me. I'm in. And then
Yeah.
that, you know what I mean?
Right.
They opt
Right.
in because it's already a given. Um, I, I just had the privilege. I was out in California and I interviewed this guy, Gary Gold. Gary Gold's the guy, the realtor that sold the Playboy Mansion for $100 million.
Wow.
$100 million.
Ooh.
Okay. And Gary, how he got that deal, that's always the question. How do you line up a $100 million sale? Like, how do you get the listing and then how do you get it? And, he not only did the $100 million sale, a few years later, he did a $150 million sale. So we're talking about top 1% of real estate agents right here. Okay. And the line that gets me about his sales process was this. So his marketing, they had to be aware of who Gary Gold is. He had to build a lot of value into his brand that he's trusted.
Mm-hmm.
His thing about how do I earn their trust, though, they interviewed the top 6 real estate agents in the world. He was there. He did his listing presentation, and they asked him bluntly, why should we choose you over those agents? Because they have more experience. Gary was the one that didn't have as much experience.
Mm-hmm.
Gary goes, you're absolutely right. They do have more experience. They know how to market your property better. They know how to do this better. They know how to do that better. They've sold more. But let me tell you something. For them, you're just another listing. For me, you're the only listing. You own me for the next 6 months. This is going to be all I think about. The only
Wow.
thing I work on. Did he get the deal? Yeah,
I'm assuming yes.
he got the deal and he ended up closing at $100 million. Why was it? Because he pointed out that, yeah, the other people, they're great at what they do, but you're one of many to them. To me, you're all that matters. And this is going to be the deal that puts me on the map. And I'd love to help you. And when they heard that this was going to be his single focus and this was going to be not just another deal, but the deal, it was a no-brainer.
It just, it amazes me how he even came up with that response when they asked him that question. Because it's not probably the kind of question he thought. Yeah, I'm sure he thought they were going to challenge him, but to come up with an answer like that is quite remarkable.
Well, you think about it, and Gary was going against the top 5 realtors in the world.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they've done more volume. They've done all these things. His credentials are great, but they're better. Their credentials are longer.
Sure.
And he goes, yeah, of course, they've done more, but you're just going to be one of many to them. For me, you're the only one.
Wow.
And
that's a great question, I think, for all of our audience to be asking that question. If someone were to ask them that, why you when I can go here? And you've got to come up with whatever the Gary response is. It's got to be your own unique one, I would imagine. But
he had a follow-up then too, because they had another realtor was really sharp, and they go, well, this guy was really sharp, this, that, he was really good at selling, da, 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 da. And Gary goes, well, yeah, he is good at selling, but you might be the one who gets sold. He might be selling you. And at that, they were like, what? And the whole idea being like, we're all good at selling, but who do you trust? Who are you going to trust at the end of the day? And that's what marketing is. It's a conversation to make people raise their hand and go, finally, somebody's saying what I'm thinking. Somebody's saying what I've been looking for. I trust you enough. Let's do this.
Mm-hmm.
And then you nurture
Yeah.
it, you retain, and you get to know them so good.
Yeah. Well, and I think it also, to go back to talking about Gary, he had to have some kind of a confidence in himself that he could deliver. It's funny. You made me think of a situation I had many years ago when I was still out in the street selling, and I walked into an office, and this was right around the time when Whitney Houston was singing the national anthem at the Super Bowl. And I'm talking to the prospect, and he said, and it's really nice to have an opportunity to talk with you, but you're coming in here right after Whitney Houston just left, and she sang the stars, the national anthem to us. And I did have a quick response. I looked at him, and his name was Bill. Believe it or not, it was Bill. And I said, Bill, you're right. I can't sing, but where do you see me dance?
There you go.
And so I actually won that account over, but it took quite some time. But so I guess I had my Gary moment years ago.
Well,
So
let's
that's
just
what you have to do. Yeah.
yeah, let's just put it in terms of like maybe there's a title agent out there who, they want to grow. There's a sales rep who wants to grow. There's an escrow officer who wants to grow. They're looking for that deal, and they're going against the big one in the state. They're going against the big one in the city. That right there could be your David versus Goliath moment.
Yeah.
To pull that out right there. Hey,
Yeah.
give me a chance. For that company, you're one of many. But for me, my book of business is smaller, and that's your advantage because I'm going to spend a lot more time on you.
Right. Yeah.
I want to see you win. And I think there's an honesty. There's I think that there's something about that type of posture
authenticity.
that's different.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Any final thoughts? I mean, I almost hate to wrap up because I've enjoyed these conversations so much.
Let me leave you with this one. And I think anybody who's heard me speak around the country, one of the things I talk about, I have a lot of different things I speak about, but the first thing that people knew me for in the business was I would tell this story about a pair of Tom Ford boots. Okay. I'm not going to tell the story here. Maybe we'll have another podcast sometime. But Tom
now
Ford,
I'm going to have you back.
Yeah. Tom Ford, super high-end fashion designer. Like Tom Brady, when he was playing, he'd walk into the Super Bowl wearing Tom Ford head to toe, like $7,000 suits. Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, everybody wears Tom Ford. So Tom Ford, though, once, and he's the guy who redid Gucci in the 90s when Gucci was failing, okay? You can go out and Google him. But somebody asked him in an interview, this is in 2011, right as he had launched his own brand. They say, Tom, hey, what role does marketing play in your brand? Because you're so good. You're so good at marketing. And, Tom kind of without pausing looked at the interviewer and he goes, I don't really like that word marketing. In fact, marketing is used for hollow products that can't speak for themselves. When a customer walks into the store, tries on a pair of pants, if it doesn't make their butt look good, they're walking out, no matter how much marketing you did to get them in there. And I think that's my question to each of us in this industry. It's, are we making pants or making pants that make our customers' butts look good? Are we opening files and closing files, or are we creating an experience that our customers could never imagine that transaction without us at the center? That's what it is. That's what I'd love to leave everybody with.
That is a wonderful bottom line. Bill, I can't thank you enough. This has been just so valuable for me personally, and I know for all of our listeners. So I almost hate to say goodbye, but I guess we're going to have to sign off. So again, on behalf of all of us here at Old Republic Title and Agency University, I want to thank you for spending this time with me and sharing all your great knowledge, information, insight. I can't wait to have you back again to talk some more on this and perhaps a few other different subjects. But
Well, no goodbyes. Just till next time then.
that's, yes, till we meet again. That's an old Irish proverb, so I'm happy to say that to you for sure. May the roads rise to meet you. Until we meet again, and to our audience, thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed this series with Bill. I can't thank you. And as Bill mentioned, I believe if you go to
closesimple.com / one page.
Right. You can get a copy of that one-page business plan, or reach out to your Old Republic title sales rep or us at Agency University, and we would be happy to point you in the right direction. So again, thanks everybody for joining us, and let's all continue to have some fun and simply learn, grow, and prosper. Bill,
Keep it
thanks
simple.
so much. Keep it simple. Okay, thanks. So long.